April 28, 1996. A quiet tourist destination in Tasmania becomes the site of one of the deadliest mass shootings in modern history. By the time it was over, 35 people were dead, 23 others were wounded, and an entire nation would change its gun laws forever. This is the story of the Port Arthur Massacre. The background, the warning signs, the investigation, and the national reckoning that followed. This is Crimeline. The man responsible was Martin Bryant, born in 1967 in Tasmania, Australia. From an early age, Bryant was described as socially isolated. He struggled academically. Former classmates later described him as immature and sometimes inappropriate in behavior. He had difficulty forming friendships. He often appeared disconnected from social norms, but while he was socially awkward, he was not invisible. A odd family, he had a small circle, and for a time, he had something else. Financial security. In the early 1990s, Bryant began working for an eccentric and wealthy heiress named Helen Harvey. In 1992, the two were involved in a serious car accident. Harvey died from her injuries. Bryant survived. In her will, she left Bryant a significant inheritance. Suddenly, he had money and no clear direction. Shortly afterward, tragedy struck again. His father, who had been struggling emotionally, died by suicide. Friends and family later described Bryant as increasingly angry and withdrawn. He expressed resentment toward others and frequently blamed society for his loneliness. By 1996, Bryant was living in Newtown, Tasmania. He had money, time. And according to investigators later, he had begun acquiring firearms. Australia at the time had far looser gun regulations than it does today. Semi-automatic rifles were legally available in many areas. On April 28, 1996, Bryant set events in motion that would shock the world. The main location was the historic tourist destination known as the Port Arthur Historic Site. Port Arthur had once been a colonial prison complex. By 1996, it was a popular tourist attraction. That afternoon, Bryant entered the Broad Arrow Cafe inside the site. Within minutes, chaos erupted. People ran for exits. Others tried to shield loved ones. Many had no idea what was happening. After leaving the cafe area, the violence continued across different parts of the site and surrounding roads. By the end of the day, 35 people had been killed. 23 others were injured. It remains the deadliest mass shooting in modern Australian history. Bryant eventually returned to Seascape Cottage, a nearby property. Police surrounded the building. What followed was an 18-hour standoff. Negotiators attempted communication. Bryant's responses were described as erratic and inconsistent. He made unrealistic demands, including requests for air transport. During the night, the cottage caught fire. As flames intensified, Bryant exited the building and was taken into custody. The massacre was over. The investigation that followed was swift and comprehensive. Evidence collected included firearms used in the attack, witness testimony, forensic analysis, recorded communications during the standoff. Bryant ultimately pleaded guilty to 35 counts of murder and numerous additional charges. In November 1996, he was sentenced to 35 consecutive life sentences, plus additional years for attempted murder and other crimes. He will never be released. Australia had experienced shootings before, but nothing on this scale. The country reacted with grief and with urgency. Then Prime Minister John Howard responded with sweeping legislative reform. Within weeks, Australia introduced the National Firearms Agreement. The reforms included a ban on most semi-automatic rifles and shotguns, strict licensing requirements, mandatory firearm registration, a nationwide gun buyback program. More than 650,000 firearms were surrendered and destroyed. The Port Arthur Massacre became the catalyst for one of the most significant gun control overhauls in modern history. Since 1996, Australia has not experienced a mass shooting on the scale of Port Arthur. The debate over gun control continues globally, but in Australia, the event marked a permanent shift in national policy. For survivors and families, however, the pain never disappeared. Each year, memorials are held at Port Arthur. the names of the victims are remembered, and the site itself has become a place not only of historical reflection, but of modern mourning. 35 lives. One day, a country changed forever. The Port Arthur Massacre was not just an act of violence. It became a turning point in public policy, national identity, and global gun reform discussions. On Crime Line, we don't just tell the story of what happened, we examine the consequences. If you found this breakdown informative and respectful, subscribe for more documented timelines and real-world case analysis. Because history matters, and remembering matters more.